I was leaning against the edge of my apartment window, watching the city lights ripple across the dark glass like scattered diamonds, when my phone buzzed. The kind of buzz that makes your chest tighten before you even look. I knew the number. It was home. I hadn't heard from them in months, not really. My parents, who once told me I had ruined their lives, were calling now. And for some reason, I felt the old, familiar ache in my chest, the one I thought I had buried along with the boxes I packed the night I left. I adjusted my silk blouse, feeling the soft fabric slide over my skin, and exhaled slowly. Everything in my life now was deliberate, measured. My office overlooked the skyline. My apartment smelled faintly of coffee and jasmine, and the awards lining my shelves whispered stories I hadn't told anyone at home. No one knew. Not my parents, not my sister, not the people who once laughed at me behind their polite smiles. The phone buzzed again. I pressed it to my ear. Hello. A familiar voice, warm and yet strained, rattled through the receiver. Emma, we need to talk. And just like that, the carefully constructed calm I'd spent years building cracked. Memories flooded back. The shouting, the accusations, the final slam of the front door as I left. My hands tightened around the phone, my knuckles whitening. I wasn't the same scared girl anymore, but a part of me had never stopped listening for these calls. I looked out at the city, thinking about all the nights I stayed up alone, building a life that no one at home believed I could. And now here they were calling me after all these years. I can still remember that night like it was etched into my skin. I was 19, full of hope and exhaustion from my first semester of college, trying to tell my parents about a scholarship I'd won, something I thought would make them proud. My sister, Lily, was sitting across the living room, her arms crossed, eyes flashing with that familiar mix of jealousy and entitlement. I ruined your lives, she screamed suddenly, cutting through my words. Do you even realize what you've done? Everything is falling apart because of you. I froze. My heart hammered, and for a brief, terrifying moment, I thought maybe she was right. But then I looked at my parents, waiting for them to step in, to see the truth. Instead, they nodded at her, their faces tight with approval. She's right, Emma, my mother said softly. You've made things so much harder for all of us. I felt my throat close. My hands shook as if trying to hold onto some invisible rope that would keep me tethered to sanity. Every word they said felt like a weight pressing down, suffocating, and the living room seemed to shrink around me. I wanted to scream, to argue, to make them see me, but the voices inside me were drowned out by the chorus of disbelief and accusation. It was my grandmother who saved me that night, though I didn't see her. She'd slipped a small leather-bound journal into my bag the week before, telling me, "The world will test you, Emma. Don't let anyone write your story for you." I clutched it now, the worn leather warm under my fingertips, a reminder that at least someone believed in me. I walked out without saying goodbye. The click of the door behind me was final, a punctuation mark on the life I was leaving behind. My apartment key jingled in my pocket as I moved toward independence, uncertainty buzzing around me like a storm. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing. I would survive. I would find my own way, build my own life, and I would let no one convince me I wasn't enough. As the city lights swallowed me, I made a silent promise to prove that my worth wasn't defined by their words or by Lily's rage. That night, the girl who had been dismissed, underestimated, and accused of destroying everything learned something vital. Leaving wasn't weakness. It was the first step toward reclaiming herself. The first months were brutal. I rented a tiny studio apartment above a laundromat, where the hum of machines became my nightly lullaby. I worked odd jobs, anything that could keep the lights on and a little food on my table, while I studied business online, devouring articles, tutorials, anything that promised to turn my scattered ideas into something tangible. Some nights I cried alone on the floor, exhausted and lonely, wondering if I had made the right choice. But I kept the journal my grandmother had given me close, scribbling my frustrations, victories, and small dreams in its pages. It was in one of those late nights at a coffee shop that I met Mrs. Callahan. She was in her 60s, sharp-eyed, elegant, And she had the rare talent of seeing potential in someone before they could see it in themselves. I was nervously pitching a small consulting idea, hands trembling, coffee cooling in front of me. She leaned back, smiled, and said, "Emma, you're going to do something remarkable, but only if you stop doubting yourself." Her words felt like a gentle shove forward, and I took it, clinging to the reassurance that I wasn't invisible. The following years were a test of persistence and patience. I spent countless nights teaching myself marketing, building websites, learning to negotiate with clients who underestimated me because I was young, a woman, and unknown. I made mistakes, costly ones, but each failure was a lesson, each small success a brick in the foundation of the life I was building. I remember the exhilaration the first time a client paid me more than I had dared to hope. I cried that night, not from sadness, but from relief and disbelief that I had carved this space for myself, one step at a time. My apartment slowly transformed. The walls no longer bare, but adorned with prints I chose, photographs of milestones I had never shared with anyone back home, reminders that I was thriving. I learned to relish the quiet victories, the first profitable month, the first email of praise from a client, the first time I realized I could plan my life without anyone else's approval. All the while, I kept my success hidden. Social media posts were neutral, polite updates. I never bragged, never gave them the satisfaction of seeing me shine. I was content to let my parents assume I was struggling, let Lily think she had won. Every message or call I ignored was a quiet declaration of independence. This was my life, built on my own terms, and for the first time in years, I felt unshakable. And yet, beneath it all, there was always a flicker of anticipation, a tiny curiosity about whether the people who had doubted me would ever realize what I had become. I didn't crave their praise, but I wanted them to see the truth eventually. For now, I focused on growth, on skill, on turning dreams into reality until the day the world, or at least my world, was ready to notice. It started with a text. My mother, hesitant, almost apologetic in tone, asking if I could meet them. I hesitated for a moment, feeling the old pangs of resentment rise, but curiosity and a quiet part of me that had always craved acknowledgement won. I agreed. They arrived on a crisp Saturday afternoon, expecting to find me in a modest apartment, struggling, maybe embarrassed by my failures. Instead, they stepped into a world I had quietly built for myself, a sunlit loft in the heart of the city, walls adorned with contemporary art I had chosen, shelves lined with books I had devoured, awards I had earned, and photographs documenting the life I had carved with my own hands. I greeted them calmly, holding my grandmother's journal in one hand. "Welcome," I said, my voice steady, warm, but carrying an edge of controlled power. They froze, scanning the space, taking in the details that screamed accomplishment. My sister's jaw dropped slightly, as if seeing a stranger who somehow carried a familiar essence. For a long moment, no one spoke. I let the silence stretch, letting them absorb the reality. The designer furniture, the laptop with multiple thriving businesses running under my name, the subtle elegance that had taken years of sacrifice to curate. The scent of fresh flowers and coffee lingered in the air, a quiet statement that this life was intentional, deliberate, and fully mine. Finally, I spoke. "I suppose you're wondering why I didn't keep in touch. Or maybe you thought I was struggling, as Lily insisted." I paused, watching their faces. My mother's eyes were wide, glossy. My father's hands fidgeted. My sister's usual arrogance wavered, replaced by confusion, maybe even shame. "I didn't struggle," I continued. "Not in the way you think. I left because I needed to survive and to grow, without the weight of judgment holding me down. I've built a company, Emma and Company, that now serves hundreds of clients nationwide. I own every part of it, from the contracts to the books. My team respects me because I earned it, not because I inherited it. I am thriving." Lily's mouth opened, then closed. You can't be serious," she whispered. I smiled, not cruelly, but with the serene certainty of someone who knows her own worth. "I am serious. And the truth is, Everything I dreamed of while I was leaving this house alone, worrying whether anyone would ever believe in me, I've achieved it. And now you see me as I truly am. My parents were silent, staring at the life they had once dismissed. I could see the flicker of guilt, the dawning awareness that the narrative they had believed, that I had ruined their lives, was entirely false. I had rewritten it myself, one sleepless night, one calculated risk, one refusal to be diminished. And then my grandmother's words echoed in my mind. Don't let anyone write your story for you. I had lived by them. I had survived the anger, the rejection, and the disbelief. And now, in this moment, my success wasn't just proof of what I could do, it was a mirror reflecting their misconceptions, forcing them to confront the truth they had ignored for far too long. I watched my sister shrink slightly, my parents' faces soften, and felt a quiet satisfaction, a calm that only comes after years of struggle, pain, and unwavering self-belief. I had finally claimed the narrative that had always been mine. I leaned back in my chair, letting the silence settle before speaking again. The power in the room had shifted completely. I was no longer the girl they accused of destroying their lives. I was the woman who had created a life they could barely imagine. And now, the choice of what would happen next was mine. I'm willing to help, I began, my voice calm but firm. But it comes with conditions. My parents blinked, caught off guard, while Lily's eyes narrowed, suspicion dancing across her face. First, I said, turning to my sister, you need to take responsibility for your actions. You screamed at me, accused me of ruining everything, and convinced them to believe you. That behavior isn't acceptable anymore. You'll need to own it, apologize sincerely, and take steps to build your own life, instead of trying to live in mine. Lily's lips pressed together, her face flushing. I didn't flinch. This wasn't revenge, it was accountability. Second, I continued, Mom, Dad, you need to understand that parenting isn't just about opinions and commands. You dismissed me, undermined me, and made choices that pushed me away. If you want to reconnect, it has to be with respect, honesty, and an openness to seeing me for who I truly am. That includes acknowledging your mistakes. I paused, letting them absorb the weight of my words. I could see the shame in their eyes, the silent acknowledgement that the roles had reversed. Finally, I said, letting my gaze sweep across all of them, we will rebuild our relationship, but it has to be genuine. Toxic patterns end here. You will learn to support, to encourage, to listen, not just to dictate. And Lily, if you want to be a part of this, it has to be with humility, effort, and a commitment to grow. The room was quiet, the tension almost tangible. Yet beneath the surface, I could see the beginnings of something shifting, a recognition, perhaps for the first time, that they had underestimated me and that their old ways would no longer be tolerated. I knew I could have walked away entirely, severed the ties for good, and that would have been fair. But my goal wasn't to punish, it was to transform, to show them that even after hurt, betrayal, and misunderstanding, a family could evolve if everyone was willing to confront their own failures. I closed the distance between us, placing my grandmother's journal on the table as a subtle reminder. The wisdom that had guided me through years of struggle wasn't just my secret weapon, it was a call to action for them as well. They needed to reflect, learn, and change. And if they were willing, I was ready to offer them a place in the life I had built, on new terms, with new respect, and with clear boundaries. For the first time in years, I felt fully in control, not of their reactions, not of their choices, but of my own story. The girl they once dismissed had become a woman they could neither ignore nor diminish. And I wasn't just offering them help, I was offering them a chance to be better, for themselves and for all of us. Weeks passed, and I watched the changes unfold slowly, but unmistakably. Lily started taking small steps, enrolling in courses she had once dismissed as unnecessary, showing up for family dinners without sarcasm or complaints, even calling to ask advice on her own projects. My parents, too, shifted. They listened more than they spoke, apologized when it was due, and cautiously began to respect my boundaries. It wasn't perfect and it wasn't instant, but it was real. One evening, as I sat by the window with a cup of tea, I held my grandmother's journal in my hands. Its worn leather cover was comforting, a tangible reminder of the guidance and belief that had carried me through everything. I flipped through the pages, reading old notes I had scribbled in moments of doubt, tears, and quiet determination. Every word felt alive, a testament to the journey I had endured and the woman I had become. I reflected on the years I had spent running from judgment, proving my worth, and building a life without their approval. I realized that the pain I had carried wasn't wasted. It had shaped me, hardened me, and taught me the value of self-respect. And now, seeing even the tiniest flickers of change in my family, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: hope. The journal had been my anchor, and it had guided me not only to success, but also to understanding. I knew I didn't need anyone's validation to feel complete, but seeing them take responsibility, witnessing the slow emergence of accountability and growth, was a quiet, powerful affirmation that healing was possible, even after years of hurt. As the city lights shimmered outside, I whispered to myself, almost like a vow, sometimes the calls that once broke you become the proof that you survived them. I smiled, sipping my tea, knowing that I had done more than survive. I had reclaimed my story, my identity, and my life. And in the process, I had given those who once doubted me the chance to learn, change, and grow, not by force, but by the undeniable strength of my own example. For the first time in years, I felt fully at peace. I was no longer the girl who left home in tears, nor the woman who hid her triumphs out of pride. I was Emma, a woman who had faced rejection, heartbreak, and misunderstanding, and emerged resilient, empowered, and unwavering in her truth. And in that quiet certainty, I finally understood that my journey wasn't just about proving them wrong. It was about proving to myself that I could rise, fully and unapologetically, into the life I was always meant to live. Bottom of form.